Your financial needs aren't independent of each other, so your financial advisors shouldn't be either. At Mercantile Bank, our experienced United Wealth professionals are united to serve you and your complete financial planning and wealth management needs. Are you just starting your investment journey or need to roll over a retirement plan? Do you need to plan for a loved one with special needs or for your own life after work? Maybe your business needs a succession plan or you want to enhance your employee benefit programs. Whatever steps you need to take, our United Wealth experts are ready to take them with you. Together, we are united.
Hi, this is Ron Kinscherf with Muddy River News. This is the Business Spotlight brought to you by Mercantile Bank and Rober and Phillips Attorneys at Law. Today, on the Business Spotlight, we're talking with the General Manager and Publisher of Muddy River News, Bob Gough. Thank you for joining us today.
It was a long walk, but I'm here.
We had talked about doing this for a while.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So give us the history of how Muddy River News got going.
Jim Rapp approached me in late 2020 and asked if I was interested in getting back in the news business, and I said I hadn't given it much thought, but I did have a business plan in my back pocket. He wanted to see it. He thought it looked pretty good and wanted me to consider it. I was working on a political campaign at the time. My candidate lost. And then the day after my candidate lost, Jim called and said, "Hey, can we talk about this again?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was either that or decide maybe go back to work for the state. I really hadn't thought about it much, but Jim and I met after that. Mike Kinscherf, of course, he is his business partner, attorney on a lot of things there. We kind of hammered out a deal, and he liked the business plan, most of it, but being a lawyer, Jim liked to redline a lot of things.
Right.
And so we kind of went through and put the thing together, and we incorporated on March 17th of 2021, and I believe we went online April 29th.
Were you thinking of not ever getting back into journalism then?
I was thinking about, I'd been doing the political consulting stuff, so I was trying to decide if I wanted to maybe look and expand that more and start doing more campaigns just outside of West Central Illinois. But then also the state was really still having issues with employment security, and I'd worked there for a while, so I was considering maybe going back and doing that. But then I didn't know if I wanted to be back on the road again at this stage of my life, and I know my wife didn't want me going back on the road, which is fine. And so she said, "Yeah, let's give this a try." So we did, and it's worked out okay so far.
When you were a little boy growing up in Missouri, did you always want to be writing and a journalist or something?
I
like
wanted
that?
to be Batman when I was a kid.
Well, okay, after you got past that stage.
I wanted to. I really wanted to. I wanted to be the next Jack Buck or Bob Costas back then, and I went to Mizzou J School to kind of do that. And then one of my professors there, Mackie Morris, actually knew both men, and he says it's awful hard to get there, but if you politely work at it, you maybe can do that. And then when I got there, I started doing sports and news. And still had the intent of being a sportscaster, and then so my first job was really kind of back home here at KHQA, where I did weekend sports and weather, and then my wife and I, she wasn't my wife at the time, my girlfriend and I decided we got engaged, and then we stayed here, and it was close to both of our parents, her parents were living at the time, mine still are. And we decided to just go and start our family here and stay here.
So what made you have a business plan for something along these lines?
I'd done this before. I had a website called quincynews.org that I started back in 2008. Then I transitioned that to the Quincy Journal, which then Star Radio basically purchased the website, and we moved it and became Quincy Journal. And I was really kind of I was really more of a one-man band. We had, the radio station was there, but I was still doing all the selling. I had another person who was doing some of the writing, but really two of us were doing most of the writing. The radio station was great for promotional purposes, but aside from that bit of writing support, I really wasn't getting a ton of support from them on the production side or the sales side, and I just couldn't do that as a one-man band anymore. And I said, this is what we need. This is how this needs to be successful. It needs to be a team of people. So at that point, I went to work for the state of Illinois as a public information officer, and I did that for 4 years.
But Jim was pretty insistent that he wanted something like this, and Jim and Mike, I'm assuming, something like that. Why were they so insistent that this needed to be?
They just saw what was happening to local news, the continued outsourcing. When Jim and I first had this conversation, Quincy Media was still around and still locally, Herald Whig and WGEM were still locally owned. Well, then that changed, obviously, so that really made Jim want to do this because we've all seen what happens when local media outlets, hometown media outlets sell to bigger companies, there's always a reduction.
Right.
There's a reduction in service. Usually a reduction in staff. Now, to WGEM's credit, owned by Gray Media, they actually have not reduced a lot of staff, but KHQA over the years has dwindled down to a very minimal staff. And the Herald Whig, after Quincy Media sold to Phillips, and then now they've had another sale already. They've had 3 owners since we've been around. They have even fewer staff. So we just saw that, and again, as I said, I couldn't do this by myself 15 years ago, or whenever it was, 14 years ago. You need a team of people to do it, and Jim and Mike were very good in giving us the startup capital in order to do that.
So I'm just trying to imagine what your business plan was going to be like to create something like this that's really kind of new. What were the first few steps?
Well, the first step was to make it sustained by advertising only, because paywalls. Newspapers are really struggling with paywalls, and people already have to pay for 18, Netflix and Max and YouTube TV and all these other things that people are paying for on a monthly basis. They really don't want to pay for something else, even if it's only like at a nominal fee of like $5 a month or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's one less thing. They just don't want to pay for it. So I felt if we went the advertising route, it would be more accessible to everyone. Because people do get frustrated if you see a link on social media that you have to go to and you get hit by a paywall. It makes people mad. They don't like it. And it used to be they would give you like, you can have 3 free visits a month or whatever. And now most news outlets have even eliminated that. So it had to be accessible. And plus, you're more accessible, easier for easier for people to read and for the advertisers' ads to be seen. So that's why we really wanted to go that route. That was first and foremost. And again, the second thing was focusing on local content with some content out of both state capitals on each side of the river. Don't cover Iowa because although Iowans are really nice people, it's just out of the way. Keep the coverage area to 8-10 counties max and go with it like that. Focus on local and go from there.
Was there a big surprise when you got started? Or I guess you had already done this before. So there probably weren't a whole lot of gotchas those first 6 months, were there?
Not really. I mean, also back then when I was at Quincy Journal, we were the first ones who started video streaming high school sports, and that is very tough to do. Mm-hmm. And I did not want to go down that road right out the gate. It was something, maybe we can look at later. But then now that I see other people are trying to do it, especially the schools. I mean, I'm glad Notre Dame has its own network to do that. I think the IHFNS or whatever it is terrible, but at least it's something. But again, that is very labor intensive, and I just don't know if that's a road we wanted to go down. But I knew we wanted to do video, and I knew we wanted to have video podcasts. I knew we wanted to have audio podcasts, and that was really the next generation, because really QuincyNews.org and Quincy Journal were really, for the most part, just the newspaper on the internet, and I knew we had to be more than that to be successful, because a lot of local newspapers are still just putting it on the internet and leaving it as is, and that's why bother.
Yeah, and then, okay, so where are you and the owners, Jim and Mike, at in terms of, 3 years, right?
Almost 4.
Almost 4 years, so I'm assuming your business plan had goals that you wanted to meet yearly and stuff like that. So where do you think Muddy River News is at?
We've grown faster because we added you and we added Matt Schuckman about the same time after we started, so we could have somebody else to do more of the sales. So I didn't have to do that, and I could focus on content. We've added more people. We had Meg Duncan for a while, and then now we had Shane Halsey, and now next year we're adding 2 more full-time people in Emma Dahlke and Aspen Gengenbacher. So what we wanted to really do was expand on that and have more people, and this was something I was thinking we were doing closer to 5 to 7 years.
Right.
So we're ahead of that curve. And Jim likes to use the phrase, while we believe we are successful, we are really not yet profitable. But to their credit, getting established and having a good local product was first and foremost, and getting a return on their investment was secondary, and that's the right reasons to do this.
But there's a balancing act.
Yeah, sure.
So the balancing act is, in order for you want to remain no cost to the users, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal
Sure.
from here until eternity. In order to do that, you need banners on the site or other type of things like that. But there's that balancing act of having too many banners on the site that doesn't make the experience nice for the end user.
Well, I think that's also why we've gone into so many of these sponsored programs that we do. You know, you and Brittany have gone out and really established a lot of these different things that we can do, and that gives people a chance to watch them, and it's not just in your face all the time. And again, I guess it's a choice. You know, we didn't do any polls or anything to say if we had fewer ads on the site, would you be willing to pay? But I just still think many people are willing to pay, and I just think it's easier for us to do it this way. Now, if it gets to a point where the advertising dries up, maybe it's something we have to visit. But we've really had good advertising and sponsorship support so far. And you know, we've had growth the first 3 years, a lot of growth. We really had a plateau this year, but you know, we've added a lot more initiatives and a lot more projects that I think we're gonna really hit a good growth spurt next year. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we do have more people, and we're able to give people more what they want, and more people say, yeah, I really like what you guys are doing. I want to support it.
Yeah, I think another challenge coming in is the industry overall. Is one side or the other from a political perspective, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I think you've made a concerted effort to stay right down the middle and just report news as it is.
Right.
Is that tough going in?
No, I mean, you know, when Quincy News was basically a really right wing site when it started. I will be the first person to admit that. But then this third iteration, if you will, yeah, I'm kind of a reformed political hack now, and I really don't have my allegiance to any particular party anymore for a lot of reasons. And I think that's the best way to cover news objectively, is to not have that in your back pocket that you – I mean, of course I'm going to still have my beliefs, my personal beliefs and all that stuff. That's all well and good. But I really want to measure and judge people who are running for office and people who are doing public service for the job they are doing. And most of them do a great job. Most of them – you never hear their names. They just go out there, they do their jobs, they work for the people. But we've got some, you know, we've really had some issues lately that have flared up, and we've got some people in the political realm who really need to kind of decide and see if they should even continue doing so.
How do you determine what is news versus what is not news?
Well, there's news, there's clickbait. I'm a fan of both, but I think you look at it, and if I find I've been doing this for a long time, and I think if it's interesting, I've got a pretty good sense of I think people will like to read that, and more often than not, I'm proven right. People in Quincy really like it when we have a new restaurant or whatever come to town. Those are always popular. We do, again, like I said, we've had some political drama that tends to be popular. But the three most popular things on the website continue to be the obituaries, the real estate transactions, and the police blotter. Mm-hmm. So if you are going to sell your house, you're going to die, or you're going to get arrested, you're probably going to be on Muddy River News.
Yeah, and then do you draw the line? How do I word this? So a lot of the trials and stuff like that we cover, there's a lot of really bad stuff that's going on. And I think you've taken some criticism as to what you have put in to those articles.
Well, I think, number one, if it's been very graphic, we've started putting disclaimers on them. But it's always like, oh, hey, don't touch that hot stove.
Right. People are going to read it anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
But, again, it's what's being reported in court, and it's factual, and that's what we do. And so if it happens in court, it's fair game. We will not identify victims' names. We've made that mistake once or twice in the past, and that was just sort of an accidental oops. But we really are focused now not to do that. But we feel that if it generates in news, if it generates attention, and what happens in the courtroom should be reported, so we can paint a full picture of what's happening in the courtroom.
It's also public
fair
record,
game,
right?
and it's public record.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks for doing this.
That's it. Wow, that was easy.
You want to say anything?
No, I just
2025.
I would like to just thank you and the entire staff as we wrap up the new year with this episode for everything you guys have done for us. We wouldn't be here without your hard work, and I think that we are going to have a great year. We're starting our morning show next year. Emma Dahlke and I are going to do an expanded version of the Morning Muddy. Looking forward to that. I think our sports staff is going to really start doing a lot of new and great things next year, and they already do a good job as is. So yeah, I think we're going to have a lot more to come. I think our traffic's going to be higher. I think revenue will be higher, and I think 2025 year will be our best year to date.
All right, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, sir.
All right, Bob Gough with Muddy River News. This is Ron Kinscherf with Muddy River News. This has been the Business Spotlight, brought to you by Rober and Phillips Attorneys at Law and Mercantile Bank.
Your financial needs aren't independent of each other, so your financial advisors shouldn't be either. At Mercantile Bank, our experienced United Wealth professionals are united to serve you and your complete financial planning and wealth management needs. Are you just starting your investment journey or need to roll over a retirement plan? Do you need to plan for a loved one with special needs or for your own life after work? Maybe your business needs a succession plan or you want to enhance your employee benefit programs. Whatever steps you need to take, our United Wealth experts are ready to take them with you. Together, we are united.